Hi, guys. So today we are going to be talking about finances in the real estate wholesale business. So there's a lot to cover. We're going to go ahead and jump right into it. And I am going to share my screen here. Go. But yes, finances 101, how to increase profitability without doing more deals. Just because you're doing more deals doesn't mean you're being more profitable, right? Very early on in my career, the co-founder of Propelio, Daniel, he's here in Dallas. He gave us some really, I mean, at the time I didn't realize it, but it was really top-notch advice. He asked what was our goal for our first year in the business, and I told him something like I want to do like 50 deals. I want to close 50 deals. Or so, I don't even think I said deals. I think I said I want to get like 50 contracts signed or something like that. Anyway, he said never tie your goal to like how many to deal volume, to how many deals you're closing. And he had a good point. He said that you can always lose money on a deal, or the deal can be really small. By lose money, obviously it's not like you're going to go negative closing a deal, but let's say you spent $10,000 in marketing to get that deal, but the deal was only like a $7,000 deal. So technically you would have lost $3,000 on that one. On that deal. And so he said it should always be tied to revenue, and more specifically, net revenue. It should be tied to profit. How profitable is your business? Because if your business is not profitable, you don't have a business. You can't stay in business. You have to be profitable. Anyway, finances 101. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Right. So the golden rule, as I always say, it doesn't matter how much money you make. The only thing that matters is how much money you keep. The example here that I wrote out was if you generate $100,000 in revenue one month, but if you spent $90,000 to get that revenue, it's not really all that impressive, right? Keep moving here. So the metrics that matter when it comes to profitability, we track marketing. So how much money are we spending on marketing? How much money are we spending on payroll? How much money are we spending on overhead? Right. And then it's usually about 60% total. So there's a net of 40% off of your top line revenue. We have to account for taxes, and then we have to account for growth as well. So I'm going to be breaking down each one of those, going into it in a lot more detail here. Get it going. Starting with marketing. So marketing, we want to be no higher than 25% of the gross revenue as a rule of thumb. Obviously, let's say you're just now starting out, your marketing is probably going to be a lot more because as far as percentages go, because maybe you're not closing as much, maybe you don't have a deal yet. So you do need, or you can just do, your marketing budget could be zero, and you can just do all the free channels, all the free things like driving for dollars, door knocking, manually cold calling yourself, different things like that. But marketing is always going to be your biggest driver of growth. And it's absolutely critical for scaling your operations. Obviously, the more you put into marketing, the more return you should expect. Well, not the more return, but you should be able to multiply your marketing dollars anywhere between 3 to 5x. 3 to 5x is really good. Some channels can offer more than that. Obviously, we have 7 to 10x here, even more. I think our best quarter as far as marketing goes for our best channel, we did like a 12x ROI on it. It was absolutely ridiculous. But I wasn't complaining about it, right? So marketing is one of 2 areas you can expect a return on investment on. It's really not an expense in and of itself. It is an investment, and it should be looked at as an investment, right? So let's talk about what are some common mistakes operators make when it comes to marketing. And that can be literally anything. I know one mistake that we made when it came to marketing was whenever we got very stable in our marketing, we realized, okay, hey, let's go ahead and spend more. Like we want to multiply our money. Let's spend more, and it worked. We spent more in marketing. We did get more leads, but we weren't able to manage all of those leads. We were way over capacity, and so ultimately, a lot of those leads went to waste. We weren't able to keep them on a follow-up cadence effectively. We weren't able to get in contact with all of them effectively, and so just big waste of money, big waste of time. It stressed out our team. It stressed me out. So it's one of those things. Again, common mistake. Don't overspend especially if you don't need to, don't have to. What else? What's another good one? I would say I want to spend on marketing channels that have a long cash conversion cycle early on. Like that can go, and I'll talk about it a little bit later, but that can go into your research and development or your growth budget, right? So cash conversion cycle I've talked about a lot, but basically is how long if I spend $1,000, how long will it take me to get this $1,000 back? Right. So that's your cash conversion cycle. And you do need to be tracking that on every single marketing channel. So that way you can do proper budgeting and forecasting whenever you run your F&M meetings. Another common mistake is not running F&M meetings. F&M meetings is finance and marketing meetings. You should be running those consistently. You should be running those every single month. We run ours the first Tuesday of every single month. And those meetings are absolutely paramount to the success of your marketing and making sure that it does multiply, making sure that it does convert. So that's another mistake, not doing F&M meetings, or at least not doing proper budgeting and forecasting. For anybody that doesn't know the cash conversion cycle on all the channels, I mean, it's absolutely paramount. You got to know that stuff, right? Moving on, let's talk about payroll. So payroll. So the team is going to drive your scalability. I mean, you can't do it alone. You absolutely can't do it alone. Not at a high level. Now, again, obviously early on you don't have a team, so maybe this is 0% or maybe it's very low. Maybe you're counting yourself as payroll, which is fine. But if you do, when you do get that team, when you do start scaling, you shouldn't put payroll above 25%. We set a target at 20% in our own company, but 25% max is still really healthy. It's still really good. Right, but this is the second area you can expect a return on investment. And payroll should be looked at as an investment. You are investing into your team, or at least you should be investing into your team. You are investing all that. It's not even just money, but it's also time, energy, and resources into training them, making sure that they can hit KPI, making sure that they can multiply the money for you, make sure that they can be productive and produce for your company. Right, but you should expect anywhere between a 5x to 15x or more ROI, maybe not more, but 5 to 15x ROI on your team members, depending on the position, right? And your hiring decisions will always, always, always directly impact your profit. If you're not being profitable, I would probably start looking at your team first. Because why? Why is it not converting? Why is it not producing? Right? But marketing and payroll are always the two biggest expenses when it comes to your finances and the health of your profitability in business, right? So let's talk about some common mistakes people make when it comes to payroll. One that we were very guilty of was being quick to hire, slow to fire, when it should be the inverse of that. You want to hire slowly. You want to make sure people are a good fit before they come into your business. And then if they're not, and you see that they're not, be quick to fire them. Why? Why is it so important? Because sometimes it doesn't directly show up in the top line revenue if you hire the wrong person. You hire the wrong person and they're bad, and maybe they don't fit your core values. Maybe they're a bad influence on your team. Now they're talking bad about certain team members to other team members. Now there's rumors getting spread around, morale goes down. And again, that doesn't immediately show up in revenue. It might not even immediately show up in their performance. They might still be getting contracts signed with the acquisitions. They might still be moving contracts if they're dispositions. But again, if you let that go on, where people are getting more and more upset, and there's more like cliques getting formed in your team and your business, and people are talking bad about either you or other team members, you're not going to stay profitable for long. That is somebody that has to get they have to go 100%. So making the wrong hire can be extremely costly. It can, and then just destroy your profitability, or paying too high of a base, making their base pay, monthly pay, salary, whatever it is, making that way too high, especially for a sales team, especially for anybody in a sales position, because you want to give them that incentive to earn as much as they can through commissions. Let's say you have somebody, let's say it's an acquisition, they want to make $100,000 a year. That's only $8,300 a month. If you make their base $5,000 a month, they only need to earn $3,300 in commissions to still hit that 100,000 for the year. $300 in commissions, if you're paying a 10% commission, is only like about a $30,000, $33,000 deal. I mean, I don't know about most people, but a $33,000 deal every single month is not going to keep the business healthy. It's not going to keep the business afloat. I mean, oftentimes we're spending more than that just in marketing each month. So only getting back $30,000 to $33,000 doesn't keep the business healthy, but they don't care because their pockets are good. They're doing fine, right? Like, because they're still earning their $100,000 a year, and so all that tells me is you paid them too high of a base, right? Let's talk about overhead and operations. I did add the and operations on there just to kind of, because most people don't think of certain operations as part as overhead. They should, but sometimes it doesn't come through. What do I mean by operations? So let's say you're doing novations, right? And maybe you're not doing as is novations. Maybe you are putting in some work on, like we do that. We put in some repairs on our novations. Well, this is going to come out of our overhead and operations budget, right? We want to make sure that we have the money for those repairs. That should not come from marketing. That should not come from payroll. We need something else to make sure that we can put the money towards novation repairs. Also, EMD, earnest money. We put earnest money down on our contracts. That's coming from our overhead and operations budget. It's not coming from marketing. It's not coming from payroll. It's not coming from any other account, right? Company website and emails, company emails, any tools that you're using. So like a team communication tool like Slack, CRM platforms, e-signatures like DocHub, DocuSign, all those little monthly recurring things that you need in order to even open for business next month or this month. Those all come from overhead and operations. Should not be more than 10% of your gross, of your top line. I mean, again, it's probably going to be so much lower in the earlier days when you're slow, because again, you don't like this overhead operations also be like an office, for example. In the early days, you might not need an office. Why are you paying for an office? You don't have a team yet. So stuff like that. So you can put a lot of this budget towards marketing, right? Before you put it towards overhead and operations. Right. So let's talk about some common mistakes that people love to make when it comes to overhead and operations. Right. That can be one I like is expecting an ROI on your overhead and operations. I've seen that you wouldn't think, but it happens. Right. There's people out there where they'll say, oh, well, they'll get $1,000 a month office. Right. Oh, well, I'm so much more productive in an office than I am at home. So it's $1,000 a month, but I'll be able to make $10,000 a month by working in the office. I would not. I mean, maybe. I wouldn't advise it. I wouldn't advise it. I would rather you put that $1,000 towards something else that's proven to multiply. Whether that's even just a VA or like an assistant, that $1,000 a month base. That'd be good. Or even putting that towards some type of like marketing channel for like some skip tracing or something. You know, I wouldn't put it towards an office, especially in the earlier years, if you do not have to. What else? What else? Another big one is modeling your business after other people who are either in a different position than you are, or just a completely different. They have a different business model than you do. So, for example, let's say people that they got into like some mentorship mastermind or whatever, and the guru is over here, and they're doing let's say they're in person, they're fully in person. Okay, that brings different things being completely in person, right, than it does if you want to run your business virtually. Because let's say in person, they have the office, they have a company car for acquisition people to go out and I mean, they don't have to have a company car. They can offer gas mileage credits and different things like that. Maybe they have company uniforms for all their employees and team members. Well, if you're running everything virtual and you mirror that, meaning you went out and you got uniforms, you got business cards, you got, an office and all that stuff, because that's what the guru did. You're just throwing away money, and it's a massive mistake that you shouldn't be making. All right, let's keep it going. So that all right there counts for about 60%, 25, 25, 10, counts for about 60%, marketing, payroll, overhead, and operations, right? Now, when it comes to taxes, and again, I don't give tax advice. This is just how I do it. This is like kind of the rule of thumb that I've seen. When it comes to taxes and also growth, we put that against that net. So after that, 60% is already taken out. So for example, I have the example here. Let's say you close $100,000 in a month. 25,000 went to marketing, another 25,000 went towards payroll, and let's say another 10,000 went to overhead and operations. Okay, so you're left with $40,000. I would charge that 10% for taxes against the 40,000, not the 100,000 that you actually generated. So that 10% would be $4,000 that I would set aside for taxes instead of $10,000. And that's all I'll say about that. Because again, I do not give tax advice. All right, let's talk about growth. Growth is a fun one, especially early on. So again, I charge that against that net amount. So after payroll, after marketing, after overhead and operations. So this can be used for masterminds, getting into mentorships. R&D is research and development. This could be testing out new markets or testing out new marketing channels, right? Well, I'll just give you guys a mistake that we made with this. The biggest one was we didn't do any research and development when testing out new marketing channels. We just went straight into PPC. We actually made the mistake twice. We went straight into PPC. We cut out all the other marketing channels that we had that was working because everybody, about gurus, everybody's talking about, oh, PPC it's the bee's knees. It's so good. It's the best. Okay, so we jumped head first into PPC. It did not convert, did not work out for us. Maybe the cash conversion cycle was too long. Maybe it was this, maybe it was that. Who knows, whatever. Again, the problem was we made it our marketing budget, right? So not only did we, when it should have came from the growth budget, so we cut off all of our marketing that we were doing and spent it all on an unproven marketing channel for us. And we ended up losing money. We had a horrible quarter because, again, all our money was tied to that. Didn't work out. We did the same thing with direct mail. So, I mean, lessons were learned. Right. But I mean, just again, common mistakes is not having a growth budget or not utilizing your growth budget effectively. Because in the earlier years, earlier days, and this is why like we were able to grow so fast in the beginning, is because we didn't have like a payroll budget. We didn't have an extensive marketing budget either. We didn't have basically the overhead and the operations budget was damn near non-existent. And so we put so much of it into the growth budget. We were spending way more than just 10% on the net as far as growth goes. But again, it allowed us to do so much. We learned a lot. We did a lot of research and development. We got into a lot of new markets. And again, we kind of basically blew up in 2021, beginning of 2022, because we were, again, focused on growth. We actually grew a little too fast. That's a whole story, but we grew too fast. All right, so let's talk about the fixes for profitability. We talked about some common mistakes people make. Let's talk about the fixes. I'm going to be focusing on marketing, payroll, overhead, and growth strategy, not taxes, because again, not a CPA, not a tax professional, right? So marketing fixes. So fixes in marketing, run those monthly F&M meetings. You have to have structure to it. There's two sides to it, right? So on the finance side of the finance and marketing meeting, you're talking about budgeting and forecasting. You're talking about how much money, how much revenue you generated last month. You're talking, so this is one thing I will say, budgeting, I know it's on that next line, but you don't want, another common mistake is doing forecasting or any kind of budgeting off of projected revenue. You should never do it off of the projected revenue. Why? Because that revenue might not close. It's not assigned yet. And even if it's assigned, it still might not close. You want to go off of closed revenue as much as you can whenever you're doing your budgeting and your forecasting. Anyway, so the finance part of the meeting, you're doing budgeting and forecasting. You're looking at how much revenue you actually generated, how much of it actually closed. You're looking at, and then you're allocating that. Okay, 25% needs to go to marketing, 25% needs to go to payroll, 25% needs to go to overhead and operations. And so you're just doing all of that in that finance section of the meeting. When it comes to marketing, now you're looking at the return on investment that you got from your different marketing channels. You're looking at, you're looking at how much you have allocated for the marketing budget. Okay, we have $25,000 allocated for marketing for this next month. What are we going to spend? Like, how much of that's going to go towards this channel? How much of that's going to go towards this channel? How much of that's going to go to that channel? We got to account for skip tracing. We got to account for stuff like that. So you're just having a very detailed meeting and making sure that you're pushing your money as far as it can go, right? Again, don't do any budgets off of projected revenue. Assigned or closed is even better. And track your cash conversion cycles. You need to, because how can you do effective budgeting and forecasting if you're not tracking your cash conversion cycle? You're kind of just throwing money up in the air and seeing what happens with it. But if you, again, in that F&M meeting, if you know that on, let's say you have a specific marketing channel where your cash conversion cycle is 3 months, that is something that you can do effective forecasting and budgeting on. Because it's okay, if I have $25,000 to play with, 10,000 of that 25 is going to go towards this marketing channel. I should make that $10,000 back in 3 months. Let's just say, okay, so I'm going to put $10,000 back into it. Let's see, and in 3 months we should get a return, and then it should multiply from there. Right? Again, cash conversion cycle stops once you make the money back. Obviously, you should make more than that money. You are not 1xing your money. You're 3 to 5xing your money, right? But you just have to know, how soon do I get that money back, right? And then manage your lead capacity very, very well. Again, we spent so much more in marketing to get so many more leads, which it worked, but then those leads went to waste because we weren't able to manage them all. It ended up being a huge waste. Talk about payroll, fixes in payroll. Again, so you want to tie, when it comes to sales team, and this is so important, you want to tie your sales team pay to their performance, right? You want the majority of the pay to be coming out of cost of goods sold. Why? Because that means that they produced, they made the company money. They should feel it if the company is not making a lot of money, right? The company comes first and foremost. Everybody on the team is there to help they're here to grow with the company, right? So if the company's not growing, it doesn't make sense for your team to still be stable, if that makes sense. I know that sounds pretty wild, but it really does. That's just what it is, right? Like, if the team isn't producing, you can't you can't keep the team, right? And so you want it tied to cost of goods sold. If you do offer a base, you want the base to just be absolute bare minimum, and the majority of the pay comes out of cost of goods sold. Now, if you do offer a base, it should be a lower commission that they're earning. If they're no base and the commission only, it should be a higher commission. Again, as long as it comes out of cost of goods sold, you're good. Give you guys an example. So one of our acquisitions, or really our acquisitions team, they have a choice. It's up to them. They can opt in. We have it set up for whatever you opt in for. It has to be for that quarter. So you're locked in for it for the whole quarter. I don't care how good your quarter is. You're not going to be able to change it later in retrospect. You're not going to be able to have that hindsight. Oh, I should have done this. Hey, let me change it to that. No. So we offer a base of $3,000 a month and a 6% commission. Or we offer you no base and a 12% commission. That's kind of, which would you rather? And it just depends. If they generated, if they close a $10,000 deal, let's just say, or let's say I'll do something. Let's say it's $100,000. If they generated $100,000, then what would that be? 6% would be $6,000. They get a base on top of that, so they earn $9,000 that month. But if they were commission only, they would have earned $12,000 that month. You see what I'm saying? So the commission only has more potential. They would have earned $3,000 more, but there's no safety net. So I'm just see what they want, see what happens, right? Follow a structured hiring process. Make sure that you hire the right person. Get them in, get them trained, and get them producing as soon as possible. We have a very, very detailed and structured hiring process that we follow every single time. And the person is very little room for margin for error on their part, right? Because again, we got to get the right person in. If we get the wrong person in, it's going to cost us something. I would have rather not even hired somebody if we got the wrong person in. We want to avoid single points of failure. And all that means is, like, let's say if you have one acquisition person, that's very dangerous, because if they ever leave, then you're SOL, right? Even more on that point, they start getting kind of like, not a big head, but they kind of start getting an ego associated with being the only acquisition. Like, oh, they can't let me go. Like, I'm like, how are they going to get contracts? I never wanted to be in a position where we were dependent on somebody else for our contracts. Like right now in our company, we do have one acquisition, but I'm backup. Like I take appointments myself too, just to keep my skills sharp when it comes to the sales process. Just so if my acquisition ever left, I'm not in a position where the company can't get contracts. I can just step in, I can get those contracts if need be while we look for a different acquisition to replace them. Again, you just want to avoid any single point of failure. And then again, the golden rule be, well, there's so many golden rules, right? So be slow to hire, quick to fire. Well, let's talk about overhead. So stay in your lane. Don't copy other businesses blindly. Again, if somebody has a completely different business model where they run everything in person and you run everything virtually, don't just do what they're doing. Don't just spend the same amount or don't spend money on the same things they're spending money on if you don't have to, i.e. uniforms, business cards. It's not necessary. Right? You want to avoid paying for any unused tools. So, for example, let's say you don't have a team yet. You don't need team communication tool. You don't need Slack right now. You don't need it doesn't make any sense. Or let's say you do run everything in person. Maybe you don't need an e-signature like a DocuSign or a DocHub kind of setup yet. Not yet. I mean, they're not expensive, but maybe you don't need them if you're always getting contracts signed in person. Now, I like having the ability to sign anything virtually if I need to. Let's say somebody all of a sudden changes their mind. Hey, I'm ready to move forward. Okay, you don't want to have to drop everything, go to their house to get them to sign. Maybe you do. At that point, you do an e-signature. But you want to scale expenses only when you need to. So, for example, let's say you're doing dispositions, and let's say you're getting maybe 1 to 2 deals every single month. I mean, a lot of times you might not need a tool like InvestorLift that's going to cost you a lot because you're only doing maybe 1 to 2 deals a month. It's not necessary. It's not necessary yet. Will it help? Sure. But again, we want to stay profitable. We don't need to spend that money. Don't spend that money. And I always recommend assignments over double closings. Double closes, I mean, they cost you extra money. Now, again, there's situations where double closing does make sense. Maybe you're making a really big fee. You don't want the buyer to see that because then they might do something wild behind your back. Or if you can't get like if you're in a state where the seller has to know what you're assigning the property for, or like if that's just your title company or whatever. And you don't want them to see that. A double close might make sense in that situation because then the seller might have an issue with how much you're making on the deal. If you didn't do what's proper in the beginning and let them know that, hey, I'm not the one buying it, I get a referral for finding an end buyer, yada, yada, yada. But we've been in business now for 6 years. I have never once done a double close. Everything has been through assignments, even on our novations. Novations are a little bit different. We do novations. We do the payouts on novations a little bit different too. So it's a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more structured to make things a lot easier. I know sometimes novations can get a little weird, but again, I always recommend assignments over double closing because again, we want to stay more profitable, right? Again, taxes, I don't go into taxes. Talk to a CPA, talk to a licensed tax professional. And that's all I will say on that. Growth strategies. Yes, making the money work harder, making it stretch further. So ways to maximize. So we don't want to be stuck with just one exit strategy. If all you're doing is wholesaling, I guarantee not only are you leaving money on the table, but you're not being as profitable either, especially if you're only wholesaling and everything is a double close. I mean, that's a double negative, but doesn't make a positive, right? So we want to get into other extra strategies, novations, wholesales if you can, subject to if you can. You can even wholesale subject twos if you have to. But what that does is if you're doing subject twos, now you can start helping people that don't have enough equity to accept a wholesale offer, right? So now you're not just walking away from deals. You can still make money. Again, I said this earlier, but early on, you can reinvest more heavily into your growth. Because payroll and overhead, they're going to be small in the beginning. It doesn't have to just stay at that 10% earlier on, right? So we have real growth examples here. We got into subject to. Obviously, we got into novations as well. That's a typo, but bear with me on that. But we got into multifamily syndication. We were able to buy our first apartment complex. This was back in 2022. It was a $12.3 million apartment complex, 143 units. I mean, again, big growth budget, right? We started a networking group, and we started renting out an office space and event space to host our networking group. But that was all early on. That was all from growth. Our marketing budget never suffered. Our payroll budget never suffered. That all came from the growth budget. All right, and then these are different things that we offer, different ways that we can help. And when it comes to marketing, we offer SMS campaign management. When it comes to your hiring, we do offer our system. We offer our system, so it's all our job ads, it's all our tools that we use, it's a scorecard that we use, it's all this hiring criteria that we have to help you find the best hire and do what you need to do. We even offer the first, I think it's the first 30 calls for free. Like we'll do the first, like it's pre-screening calls, but we'll have 30 pre-screening calls for you. So you're only talking to applicants that would make sense for you to talk to. And obviously we have other growth programs based on where you're at. Whether you need a fractional COO or maybe you just need a little bit of guidance or like a roadmap to help you get over a certain rock or a certain hurdle, we help you with that as well. So. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining me on this one. If you guys have any questions, please, if you're not already in the community, get into the community and then ask those questions there. We'll get to you as soon as possible. Thanks.